Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, candidates hit the campaign trail for the final stretch before Tuesday's election. And Kentuckians line up for a free chance to win $1.6 billion, the largest lottery prize ever.
And warm weather here to stay as we head into the weekend, but what about the sunshine as well? The latest on that coming up as Mountain News at 5:30 starts now.
Dedicated to Southern and Eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul and his challenger Charles Booker are hitting the campaign trail one final time to meet with their supporters ahead of Tuesday's election. Paul made stops in the mountains this morning. WYMT's Dakota Makris has more from both U.S. Senate candidates.
Welcome to Barberville.
Thank you.
Yeah. Senator Rand Paul and his wife met with supporters in Barberville Friday morning, hearing what issues are on the minds of voters, like inflation.
People who are retired are saying they may have lost 20 to 30% of their nest egg, money they saved their whole career. So there's a lot of worry about the economy right now.
Senator Paul mentioned the country's debt, saying the U.S. should spend how much it brings in.
When you balance your budget and you don't have to borrow money, then the Federal Reserve doesn't have to buy the debt. When the Federal Reserve buys the debt, they print up money. So for the last 2 or 3 years, the Federal Reserve's been increasing the money supply at about 15% a year. That's what creates inflation.
Democratic candidate Charles Booker is running for U.S. Senate in Kentucky.
Charles Booker says one of the differences between he and Paul is he lived the struggles he has talked about.
I'm not pandering. I'm not giving talking points. When I talk about the need to make sure that everyone can afford their medication, I've rationed my insulin as a type 1 diabetic. I nearly died from that just to feed my girls.
Booker says he has heard from his supporters and they just want to be able to afford to live.
So making sure that folks have good paying jobs, good paying union jobs, that folks have financial freedom and no one's having to ration their medicine.
As both candidates encourage people to get out to vote. In Knox County, Dakota Makris, WYMT Mountain News.
Kentucky Secretary of State Michael Adams says nearly 82,000 Kentuckians took advantage of the first day of early voting yesterday. More than 39,000 Republicans, more than 37,000 Democrats, and nearly 5,000 independents went to the polls. Again, that was just yesterday. You can find your voting location at govote.ky.gov, and early voting will continue tomorrow. Well, Election Day is just a few days away, but like we mentioned, many Americans have already voted. The economy is listed as the most important issue for voters across the country. Surveys say voters trust Republicans more than Democrats to handle the economy, as well as national security and immigration.
That is driving a lot of the energy, particularly among voters in the middle.
Those same surveys also say about half of voters think gun violence and abortion are very important issues. That could help Democrats following the shooting massacre in Uvalde, Texas, and the overturning of Roe versus Wade.
Well, look outside right now. Plenty of sunshine throughout the region, and we have really warmed up throughout the region today. Hazard at last check was in the upper 70s. Here's a look outside right now from Moorhead. 75, the current reading there. Just a few high clouds along Interstate 64 this evening. Now toward parts of southern Perry County. Not a cloud in sight. We've cooled a little. 77, the current reading at Buffalo Mountain, but that's about it. Temperatures region-wide, middle and upper 70s. We just saw we've reached a high so far at Jackson of 78 today, 74 in London. Winds out of the south. That's what's helped us, 10 to 15 miles per hour, really bringing in that warm air. Satellite and radar throughout the mountains were quiet. In fact, throughout much of the eastern part of the country were quiet. That's not the case as we head down into parts of Oklahoma and Texas. Numerous tornado warnings in effect, and even reports of a tornado on the ground near Paris, Texas already this evening. They're getting ready for a big-time severe weather outbreak for tonight. For us in the forecast, no severe weather expected. We will see, however, conditions cooling from the 70s into the 60s overnight as we watch clouds from that system move in. I'll have the very latest on what we could see coming up in a few minutes. Steve?
All right, Evan, thanks. One Kentucky woman is now a millionaire after cashing in a winning Powerball ticket. The woman wants to remain anonymous, but she is from Bowling Green. She cashed in a winning ticket last week. The woman's ticket matched the 5 white ball numbers winning the game's second prize. The prize is usually worth $1 million, but her ticket had the power play option, so her winnings doubled to $2 million. The woman says she would invest her winnings and book an appointment with a financial planner. Well, tomorrow's Powerball jackpot is now the highest in lottery history. Earlier today, the prize hit a whopping $1.6 billion. This morning, Kentucky lottery officials were handing out free Powerball ticket vouchers in Frankfort. Officials say they wanted to make sure everyone got a chance to win the life-changing prize. Players waited in line outside the Frankfort Kroger, thinking about what they would do if they won all that money.
Would I know how to spend it? Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm good at spending money. But the first thing I would do is have some family members and some co-workers. I would give them a nice bonus that they deserve.
Well, the biggest Powerball winner in Kentucky's history took home more than $128 million. And again, you still have plenty of time to get a ticket. The next drawing is tomorrow night. The CDC says hospitalization rates for the flu are the highest they have been in a decade. The agency says it comes amid a surge in the common respiratory virus known as RSV. CBS's Dina Demetrius reports from Los Angeles.
Cook Children's Hospital in Fort Worth, Texas is slammed with so many cases of RSV, it activated an internal disaster code.
The sheer volume of kids that we are seeing is just unprecedented.
The respiratory virus also triggered a health emergency declaration in Orange County, California.
It's the younger children that typically are more impacted.
RSV is a common virus that usually causes minimal symptoms such as a cough or scratchy throat, but it can be severe in older adults and infants.
Their tiny little airways can get plugged with the mucus that's created by the infection, and then they need assistance to breathe.
The CDC says the increase in RSV comes as COVID continues to circulate and flu hospitalizations are at their highest in 10 years.
Because of COVID restrictions, these children were separate. The virus couldn't find us. Now that they're all together again, the virus can spread readily.
Dr. William Schaffner, an infectious diseases expert at Vanderbilt University Medical Center, says parents should be alert, particularly with very young children.
If they stop feeding, stop taking fluids, look lethargic and sick, and certainly if they have any difficulty breathing, contact your healthcare provider.
He and other health experts say vaccination against the flu and COVID is the #1 way to protect children. Dina Demetrius, CBS News, Los Angeles.
The CDC says while the respiratory cases are earlier this year, so far they are not more severe. The U.S. may soon have a tool to fight some respiratory tract infections caused by RSV. A preventative treatment for the ailment was approved by the European Commission today. Officials say a submission has been sent to the FDA, and if it gets approval, it may be available in the U.S. sometime next year. So far, RSV is causing many pediatric hospital beds, as we just talked about, to fill up nationwide. The CDC says most children get RSV sometime before the age of 2, but it is often a mild case. A new type of antibiotic to treat urinary tract infections will also soon be submitted for FDA approval ahead of schedule. That's a big deal because it's the first antibiotic developed for UTIs in more than 20 years. UTIs are one of the most common infections, especially in women and girls. The drug maker GSK says it would submit its data to the FDA for approval next year. That's about a year ahead of the study's anticipated completion date. A study published yesterday in the New England Journal of Medicine found a single dose of a synthetic version of magic mushrooms improved depression in some people. The randomized clinical trial compared results of a 25 milligram dose to a 10 milligram and 1 milligram dose. Researchers say they found an immediate, fast, rapid-acting, sustained response to 25 milligrams. But by week 12, the positive impact on depressive symptoms had waned and no longer reached a level of statistical significance. Experts found the study's findings promising, but say there are a number of issues that need further evaluation before this drug would be available for clinical use. Well, don't forget to fall back this weekend. Daylight saving time ends Sunday, so turn your clocks back an hour at 2 a.m. or before you go to bed. The time change can sometimes throw off your sleep, so experts say it's important to make some changes now. They suggest gradually shift your internal clock by adjusting sleep and wake times by about 15 or 20 minutes a day.
It might seem like it's a small change. It might seem like, gosh, I get this extra time to sleep in, but it really can have detrimental effects, and especially on our mood overall.
Horvat says limiting caffeine and alcohol before bed can help too. Exercise and sun exposure can also allow your body to be sleepy at the right time. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, the latest job numbers are out and it shows hiring was brisk across the country.
Plus, we keep things warm as we head into the weekend, but will we return to showers later? That breakdown is ahead.